good you are. Yeah. And we're streaming. It's recording, it's streaming. We're about good to go. Feels like we should be able to. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is wonderful to be together and see newer faces and familiar faces, and this sounds like it is very loud. Though I'm told sometimes you have trouble hearing me. As we welcome in our Shabbat and our service together, those who are here in the room and those who are online, we begin by singing Hine Matov, which you can find on the song sheets that hopefully you picked up on the way in, or now would be a wonderful time to sneak out and grab one.
Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. 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 How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. Shalom aleichem, salam aleikum. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. How good it is, how sweet it is, to be together on this day. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. How wonderful it is for us to be together. We continue singing together in this holy space with Light These Lights. Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say Amen. Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to you. Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you.
It is my pleasure to invite up the Seidels to light the candles for us this evening. The blessing can be found on page 2. And it's there, bigger font too.
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
We praise you, eternal God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with our mitzvot and commands us to kindle the lights of Shabbat.
Amen.
Thank you so much. Your 66th anniversary today. Mazal tov. That is something to celebrate.
And strive for sure. Yes. We will continue together with our service on page 24 with the words of Shalom Alechem. Shalom Alechem, Malachei Asharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boechem LeShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni LeShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem LeShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'yitkadash mirabah, ve'elmad yivrach yotev yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'chayeta kol bet Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, u'bizman kariv, v'himeru, amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba mevarach, ve'halam ulal me'al maya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'ishtabach. vit bahar, vit ramam, vit nasi, vit hadar, vit ale, vit halal, shmi du kudesha, brichu, lahela mikol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, v'himeru, amen.
We rise physically or spiritually for the Baruch Hu, which can be found on page 28.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam vaed.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach sha'arim, ubitbuna mishane itim, umachalif et hazmanim, umisader et hakochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, bore yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uvein layla, Adonai tzivaot shemo, El Chai v'kayam, tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. On page 33, wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us, and the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. You may be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'ribarta bam v'shivtecha v'veitecha uv'lektecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
On the top of page 39, standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there, except by joining hands, marching together.
Mi chamocha b'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh, noratu ilot osefele, noratu ilot osefele. Amar kifada Adonai et Yaakov ugalo miyad chazach mimenu. Baruch ata Adonai Gaal Yisrael. You'll find the words for our Hashkivenu on your song sheet. Understanding among us, let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, l'shalom. V'ha'amidenu, shomrenu l'chaim. Uthros aleinu, sukat shlomecha. Hashkivenu, Adonai Eloheinu. Hashkivenu, l'shalom. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. You can find the words for Vishamru on page 44. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'dorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים, כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
We rise as you are able as we turn to the Amidah, page 46.
Adonai שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibur v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei HaKol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר מושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם וזרע שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. הוריד הטל, מחלקל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, ויחמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. You may be seated.
We pray together on the top of page 55. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Ritzei, Ritzei, Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu. Sorry, we were in the wrong key. challenging to sing some of this liturgy if it's not sung in the key that you are used to. So I apologize.
There's something kind of special about restarting a prayer that is discussing that our prayers and our actions should be worthy, to do it in a more appropriate fashion for our community. We'll pray together on the top of 59. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov b'necha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol it u'b'chol shah b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Baruch atah Adonai hamavarech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. We now take a moment for silent prayer and meditation.
This time, it is my pleasure to invite you to rise for our Torah service. And since I am the only rabbi here, might I be able to ask Joel and Addie to help me open the ark this evening? Means you have to give up holding the baby brother for a few minutes. It's a tough choice. Oh, and shoes. Shoes are advisable on the bima. We rise and turn to page 244.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai ve'ein k'ma'asecha malchutcha malchut kol olamim u'memshatcha b'chol dor v'dor Adonai melech Adonai malach Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed Adonai hos le'amo yitin Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom ki mitzion tetzeh Torah ki mitzion tetzeh Torah u'devar Adonai mirushalayim Baruch shenatan Torah Torah Baruch shenatan Torah Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adoninu Kadosh Shemo Gadol Adonai iti Umama Shemo Yachdav Lecha Adonai Hagedula Hagevura Vatiferet Ve'anitzach Ve'ahod Ki kol bashamayim uvaretz Ki kol bashamayim uvaretz Lecha Adonai hamamlacha ve'amid na'aseh bechol erosh. You may be seated.
So this week's Torah portion comes from Parshat Chukat, which opens with the laws of the red heifer, which are notoriously laws that we would not find by our own logical reasoning, and hence the name of the Torah portion of a chok being a law that has no rational basis. And I could talk a lot on that, but I'm not going to. That might be for Torah study in the morning. And then the portion in chapter 20 goes into the death of Miriam and Aaron, and that is where we will pick up with our reading this evening. I will start with the beginning of chapter 20 in the Plout Torah commentary. You can find the reading on page 1026. 1026. It's in the middle-ish of the page at the start of chapter 20. And it is our custom to join in the Torah blessings together. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach, Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah. Amen. Vayavo'u v'nei Yisrael, Kol ha'edah midbar Tzin, and all of the children of Israel came to the wilderness or the desert of Tzin, b'chodesh harishon, in the first month. Vayeshev ha'am b'Kadesh, and they dwelled in Kadesh. V'tamot sham Miriam, and there Miriam died. V'tikaver sham, and they buried her there. And what was Miriam known for? Water. V'lo haya mayim, and after Miriam's death and burial, the people had no water. V'lo haya mayim le'edah, to all of the community. V'yikahalu al Moshe, and they assembled up against Moses, ve'el Aharon, and against Aaron, because our people are very good at complaining. This verb form is a little bit different, I think. Vayarev ha'am im Moshe, and the people, they argue or they sort of mutiny almost against Moses. Vayomeru lemor, and they did this saying, V'lo gav'anu bigva achenu, if only we had perished when our brethren perished, lifnei Adonai, before Adonai. V'lama havitem et kahal Adonai el hamidbar hazeh lamot sham. Why did you bring all of us, all of this congregation of Adonai, to this wilderness here just to die? Anachnu uv'irnu, all of us, and also all of our cattle. V'lama ha'alinu mimitzrayim lehevi otanu el hamakom hara hazeh. And why did you bring us out of Egypt? To bring us to this evil, wicked place. Lo makom zera, in this place there is not any sort of seed. V'te'ena, and there is not any sort of fig. V'gefen, and there aren't vines. V'ramon, and there are no pomegranates. Umayim ein lishtot, and we don't have any water to drink. So we've gone from no water to a whole laundry list of things we don't have. Vayevi Moshe ve'Aharon mipnei hakahel el petach ohel moed. And Moses and Aaron, they go out from this congregation of the people, and they go towards the entrance to the tent of meeting, to the tabernacle. V'yipalu al panehem, and they fall upon their faces. Vayar kavod Adonai Elohim, and the presence of Adonai appears before them. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, and Adonai speaks to Moses. First verse, it was to Moses and Aaron. This one's just to Moses. Kach et hamateh v'hakahel et ha'edah ata v'Aharon achicha. You're going to take up your stick, your staff, and you're going to gather up all of the people, you and your brother. V'dibartem, and you shall speak, el haselah, and you're going to speak to a rock, le'enehem, before their eyes. V'natan mimav v'hotzeat lahem mayim, and I'm going to give forth from it, and it will bring to you water, min hatzelah, from the rock. V'hashkita et ha'edah, and all of this community will, it's an interesting Hebrew form, like will be watered from it, but they're going to be able to drink. Ve'et bir'em, and all of their cattle as well. Vayikach Moshe et hamateh melifnei Adonai, and Moses takes up his staff from before Adonai, ka'asher tziva'o, as he was commanded. Vayikahlu Moshe ve'Aharon et hakahal el penei hasala. And he gathers Moses and Aaron. They gather up all of the community before the face of the rock. Vayomer lahem, and they say to them, meaning the people, Shim'u na hamorim, listen up, you sort of rebellious folk. Haman hasela hazeh is this rock, because we're all assembled around the rock. Notzi lachem mayim, is it really going to give you water? Vayaram Moshe et yado, and Moses lifts up his hand, vayach et hasela, and he hits, or he strikes the rock, bamatehu, with his staff. Not just once, but pa'amayim, 2 times. Vayitzu mayim rabim v'tashet ha'edah uv'ir'am. And the rock brings forth water, and all of the people are able to drink, and also their cattle. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe, but God says to Moses, ve'el Haron, and to Aaron, Ya'an lo he'emantem vi lehachdisheni le'enei v'nei Yisrael. Essentially, you failed this task because you did not show faith in me and you did not sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel. Lachen lo tavi'u et hakahal hazeh el ha'eretz asher natati lahem. Therefore, you don't get to go into the land of Israel that I'm about to give them. Hama mi mireva asher rivu v'nei Yisrael et Adonai v'yikadesh vam, and thus this place is known as Merivah, because it is here that the children of Israel strove or sort of rebelled against Adonai, and that Adonai was sanctified through them. It's a very interesting section. We'll join in the blessing after the Torah reading. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. And with the Torah in our midst, we take a moment to pray for healing. We think of those in our congregation who are in need of healing of mind, of body, or of spirit. We pray especially this Shabbat for Catherine Cooper, Denise Rosenbaum, Rachel Magdalene, Sid Gross, Sharon Hatcher, Ken Andrews, Megan Turner, Penelope June Moyer, Ruth Hirsch, Maxine Rubin, Nisim Ben Rachel, Dave Cox, Jim Levinson, Larry Weinberger, Jody Weinberger, Jim Locke, Mitchell Quint, Gary Pacernick, Cicely Nathan, Linda Dean Harris, Jerry McDonald, Marty Sacker, and Bob Kahn. If there are other names that you wish to add, I invite you to share them as my hand meets your eyes. We pray together with the words of Mishaberach, which can be found on page 253 in your prayer books. Mishaberach avotenu mekol abracha the ones before us. Help us find the courage We look to the words on page 252 and rise as the Torah is lifted.
V'zot Torah she'sa Moshe mipnei bnei Yisrael. Ani Adonai
Change is hard, and there's a lot of it in this week's Torah portion, even in just one chapter. I read about the first 11 or so verses of the chapter, but in the 29 verses in this chapter, the Israelites arrive in Zin in the first month. Miriam dies. We can't find water. The people bicker. They panic. They complain. We're all going to die! Moses and Aaron go chat with God. God says, talk to a rock. Moses, in presumed frustration, hits the rock. We get water anyways, but Moses gets punished. And despite the fact that Moses is the one who hits the rock, Aaron gets punished too, which really isn't so explained. There's a whole side incident where I stopped reading with Edom about them not wanting us to go walk through their country. Aaron's leadership role is passed to his son, and he promptly dies. And then the people mourn Aaron, we're told, for 30 days, which we did not get when Miriam dies at the beginning of the chapter. We presume they mourn her, but we don't get a specific time frame. 29 verses. Basic organizational change practices would deem this too much change too fast and without the proper procedures, if you will, in place. I have a textbook on my bookshelf about this thick, about talking to the stakeholders and everything before you implement even the slightest little change. The Bible does not do that. Our lived experience of the last 2 years, and this was on my mind because I was bringing back some of the books from my home office now that I'm spending a little more time here, was said organizational change handbook, got thrown out the window. The world as we knew it in March of 2020 got overturned, and I'm paralleling this in a way to the Israelites' lives getting overturned as they leave Egypt, one hopefully for much happier circumstances than ours, but the idea of rapid change being maintained. Most of the time in our lives, we're somewhere between the two ends of this continuum of slow, methodical change and chaos or total disruption forcing change. It's been almost half a Torah in our readings since the Israelites left Egypt, and yet, once again, they are doing what they seem to do best, complaining and asking to go back to Egypt and wishing for what was. So we might say that Moses and Aaron and Miriam as leaders, have they been successful? Did they fulfill the vision of bringing the Israelites to freedom when the people are still complaining and none of the three of them get to enter into the land? There's a piece I read recently by Angie McCohen that got me thinking about how we define success. And I had that in mind as I was preparing this week's Torah portion. She writes, I think a lot about how we as a culture have turned forever into the only acceptable definition of success. If you open a coffee shop and run it for a while and it makes you happy, but then stuff gets too expensive and stressful and you want to do something else and close it, It's a failed business. If you write a book or two and then decide you don't actually want to keep doing that, you're a failed writer. If you marry someone and the marriage is good for a while, and this is why I was kind of smirking at the 66 years, because you're going against what I'm saying here. Marriage is good for a while and then stops working and you get divorced, it's a failed marriage. The only acceptable win is you keep doing that thing forever. Keep doing that thing. A friendship that lasts for a few years, I'm adding some into what she wrote in case that wasn't clear. A friendship that lasts a few years, but then its time is done and you move on, is considered less valuable or not as real a friendship. A hobby that you do for a while and then are done with is a phase, or alternatively, a pity that you don't do that thing anymore. A fandom is dying because people have had a lot of fun with it but are moving on to other things. I just think that something can be good and also end. And the thing was still good. And it's okay to be sad that it ended too, but the idea that anything that ends is automatically less than this hypothetical eternal state of success, I don't think that's doing any of us good at all. I have this in mind with our Torah portion. We've been ingrained with this idea that success is inherently a superlative or supposed to last forever, that we should strive to be the best, the smartest, the fastest, the boss, etc. I think there's this image also ingrained in our heads of Aaron in this portion, and later in Deuteronomy, Moses, on their respective mountaintops overlooking the land of Israel and having all of these feelings of regret and disappointment and other emotions that we would put in the negative column at not being allowed to enter the land because they were punished. They didn't get to finish the job. But then I read Angie's words and I wonder, what if that's our superimposed notion of success? Perhaps Moses and Aaron felt those feelings, but perhaps they also were relieved that they could retire, that they could step back, that they could stop doing the thing and still be a success. That they could stop being the capital T, and I would argue possibly also H-N-E, leader of our people. What if among all those feelings Moses had, there was also some stuff we would put in the positive column? If this portion, what if we could see this portion as being not so much about death, but being more about transition, about being an end, about there being success in stepping back, in letting somebody else take the reins? Our Jewish tradition teaches, in the words of Rabbi Tarfon, it is not up to us to finish the work, but neither are we free to desist from it. We can define success in our modern ways, or we can define the success of Moses and Aaron with a different measuring stick of doing everything for the Israelites from Egypt to the Promised Land. That would be our modern one, or by being able to do it for a time. In which case, the seeming failure at the rock, which we read tonight, would not mean they failed their mission. Perhaps Moses knew. Perhaps Moses wished and hoped all along that he would not be the sole person to lead this people into Israel. From the very beginning, he asked for help. He asked not to be the only one. Rather than complete the mission himself, Moses requested and sought out the help of Aaron and Miriam. And now, as I will phrase it, in their retirement, the staff is being passed. The staff itself is a symbol of the good and the bad, of the faithful times and the moments of doubt and anger. The very staff in this portion that Moses hits the rock with that gets him punished is also the staff that cued the plagues and the sea to split. When we define success as something other than an unending story, when success can be a book, a portion, or a chapter of our lives, perhaps it's easier to see and celebrate small victories and to take a step back and let the next person enjoy the spotlight as we enjoy the next success in our lives. While Moses and Miriam and Aaron didn't get to the promised land in the end, and while he wasn't a perfect person, I would say he still is a successful leader of our people. As we enter Shabbat, may we find success in all of our endeavors and good companionship along the way. Shabbat Shalom. And as we begin to conclude our service, we will turn to page 256 and rise as the Torah is returned to the ark.
It's Chaim hi, lama chazikim ba, v'tomcheha meushar derachea darchinom v'chon netivoteh shalom hashivinu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadish yaminu kekedem chadish yaminu kekedem. We continue with the words of Aleinu, which can be found on page 282.
At this time, we think of our loved ones whom death has taken from us recently. As a congregation, we are in a period of Shloshim for Robert Weinman. And we think of those who died at this season in years past with the yahrzeits of Emmanuel Morris Arnovitz, Harry Block, Irene Blumen, Eric Brown, Bertha Bruckfeld, Robert L. Klein, Frank D. Cohan, Louis L. Cohen, Hyman S. Dennis, Emma P. Fialco, David C. Finn, Joseph O. Frank, Joe Friedman, Rose Gall, Benjamin Benny Goldfleece, Gilbert Goldstein, Jacob Goldswig, Sally Green, Lois Hamblin, Mildred Hensley, Ralph Heyman, Molly R. Jacobs, Belle C. Jaffa, Hans Lieberman, Stuart Mayman, Esther Mayerson, Dorothy B. Moyer, Nathaniel Patterson, May R. Pergozin, Israel Rosen, Samuel I. Rosenthal, Suzanne Rothstein, David T. Sacker, David Alexander Seidel, Isaac Sajevitz, Ronald J. Silverman, Sol Slavin, James Stewart, Marjorie R. Tanis, Carl Tenbosch, Harry E. Weprin, Henry Winters, and Norma Jane Zappin. We take them and all those we have drawn in our hearts or name aloud now. Invite those in mourning or remembering to rise first. As we join them standing as one congregation together and turn to the words on page 294. Yit Gadal V'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma Divra Chirute V'yamlich Malchute B'chayechon Uvyomechon Uvchaye Dechol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala Uvizman Kariv V'imru Amen. Yehe Shemei Rabba Mivarach Le'alam U'lalmei Almaya. Yit Barach V'yish Tabach V'yit Pa'ar V'yit Romam V'yit Naseh V'yit Hadar V'yit Ale V'yit Halal Shemei Dekudisha Barichu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Da'amiran Bi'alma V'imru Amen. Yehe Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'imrumav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. Zichronam Livracha, may their memories always and only be for a blessing.
You may be seated. We will conclude our service with the words of the last verse of Adon Olam, which you can find on page 321. V'yado afkid ruchi v'heit ishan v'ahira v'him ruchi v'viati Adonai riv lo ira v'him ruchi v'viati Adonai riv lo ira. My soul I give to you, my spirit in your care. Draw me near, I should not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I should not fear. Safely in your hand.
Shabbat Shalom. I hope you will join us in the hall for Kiddush and Motzi and a little bit of a nosh.